All right. So for the second half,
Kai, I'm
yeah.
not sure if Nate's exactly back right now. So there's a question from Rebecca that I think we need to clarify though before we move forward.
Okay. Let's see here.
I just wrote my response to that one, Sean.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So
All
Rebecca has
right.
a scenario in which a district contracts with the county office for services, and the example is for an educational or for a school psychologist. She's wondering if the COE is the reporting LEA rather than the district because the staff is employed by the COE. And there's a further, I guess, complication to the scenario in that she heard the guidance that the district would report the staff with a generic seat of all nines rather than the county office. So I provided the guidance that the county office should report the staff member in staff demographics and staff assignment records. If the staff member is providing services in a course section, then the district can provide the seed of that staff member if possible in the course section record, or they could provide a generic seed of all nines if not able to locate the seed. But the generic seed of all nines is only ever used in course section records, so we would only ever report that staff member that way if they were providing services in a course. In all other ways, the COE would be reporting the staff member in all files that are not course section files.
That's correct. Thanks, Matt. I'd also just add though to Rebecca, the LEAs may want to review their agreements with the COEs, and if there is a way that they can report that staff member even for a portion of that time, then they should be. But again, that has to be codified out in their agreements. And Rebecca says, perfect, thank you.
All right. So let's move on to certification process. So for those who are brand new to CalPads and have not gone through the certification process, um, we'll provide some training on that. Anyway, we this is essentially the whole picture of the post file submission and the certification process. Why do we have to show the entire process? Because it basically, it's connected. I mean, for you to be able to correct certification errors, you have to submit files, right? So it's a vicious circle essentially. So essentially, you submit your files, it goes to CalPads. If it passes the initial submission errors, then it goes to the CalPads ODS or data storage. Now, if you encounter any IVRs, then of course your file gets rejected and you have to make the corrections and resubmit the file. Once the records are all posted, it is then stored in the ODS where CalPAS will generate reports, create extracts for you, and then of course you have your data discrepancy. If some of those data, um, initially that data may have passed the IVR, the first level of validation, but sometimes the same data may not pass the second level of validations, which we call the data discrepancy. And so you have to look at your data discrepancy errors, correct them, and then correct them by submitting a new file or by manually making the corrections online in CalPads. Wait for a new um, refresh of the data discrepancy. If the error is clear and you have zero data discrepancies, then you also have to wait for the snapshot revision to pick up the changes that you've made. More often than not, when you have data discrepancy errors and your snapshots pick up those errors, it um, essentially the snapshot revisions take longer to update. And so even if you've made corrections to your data discrepancies, you still have to wait for the snapshot revision um, to pick up or what to call this to to get updated with the changes. Okay, so if you fail to because I've mentioned if you fail to resolve any data discrepancy errors, it will manifest as a certification data discrepancy, which is your certification errors. So you have to correct those. Once you've corrected them, you then it clears all of the errors. You then go ahead and review the reports because it doesn't make sense for you to start reviewing your reports if you still have CDDs or certification discrepancy errors, because it will any data, any student that triggers an error will not be part of your reports. So once you've cleared all of your CDDs, your data discrepancies, um, you then review the reports, and if you are satisfied with the counts of on all of your fall to reports, then you click on the LA approval button, and you are officially certified. Okay, so let's do a demo. It would be better to do a demo than just show you the slides. Um, so we are in the test environment. So you have your certification status here on the left side, and you have fall 2, right? So if you click on your fall 2 status, you should be able to see your fatal summary, and this is reflective of your data discrepancy. So let's look at the data discrepancy section. As you can see, your data discrepancy reflects the same amount of errors as your CDD. Okay, so because right now we haven't made any changes on or corrections on your data on our data discrepancy, so that data discrepancy manifests as a CDD or certification data discrepancy on the certification page.
Why do we even look at the CDD or the data discrepancy screen?
Well, number one, we all have to consider the different the amount of time CalPads processes data. Okay. Number one, the data discrepancy is a real-time processing of data. Anytime you post records to CalPads, you upload records to CalPads, it triggers a data discrepancy run, and that process refreshes quicker than your certification snapshot revision. Okay, this is a real-time, processing of data. It will then tell you if your data has additional errors or triggered errors earlier than the snapshot processing. So now I would rather you focus on these errors on the data discrepancy than the certification page, because this takes longer to refresh. So here you can essentially work on your data way before even the snapshots are activated for a particular submission. Okay, so if you have submitted, if you were in fall 1 and you started submitting fall 2 data, you can always start running data discrepancies, checking data discrepancies for data that might be relevant for a future submission. Also, once you correct errors to a particular data discrepancy for a particular cycle, fall 2 cycle, this refreshes quicker. Once you see that you've cleared all of the errors, it's just a matter of time. You just essentially have to wait for the snapshot revision to catch up and acknowledge that the errors reflected here has been corrected. So bottom line is, if you see any errors in your certification, go to your data discrepancy and fix those errors here. You will have a a quicker turnaround time to validate if any corrections you've made cleared or not. So that's a spiel. And also, as I've mentioned, this is running real time and will run throughout the year. For certifications, this will only get activated once the snapshot revisions get activated at a certain part of a submission cycle. Okay. Right, so you have your errors here, and then you also have the reports. This is where you review your reports, which Nate will discuss later. And this is where once you've reviewed all of the aggregate reports, this green check mark, this red X's will turn into a green check marks, and that would then activate a button here that you will need to check stating that you agree to all of the data that you've reviewed, and that all of the data are accurate. So check that box, and an LEA approved button will appear here. And then if you click on that as well, you will be officially certified. Now, when reviewing reports, only start reviewing reports when you've cleared all of your errors. Okay. That way you you're certain that all of the data that you've submitted in CalPads are accounted for. And then when reviewing reports, make sure that you also review supporting reports because it provides you the details of each report. Okay. And then the snapshot history just provides you um, a historical a story of all of your snapshots, right? So as your CSIS monitor, this is where we normally go to see if you're making progress with your errors, with resolving errors. All right, so again, just like in Fall 1, you have different versions of a status. So CalPads runs parallel revisions every day. So if you've mm, if you set this revision into review, essentially it freezes this version, and then if you make changes later on, CalPads will generate multiple revisions here. There would be a revised and certified on top of your in review status. Okay. Now, if let's say you've LEA approved already and you are certified, and then you made changes, then do not decertify first. Just refresh your revision status to revise and certified to see if the changes you've made are reflected on the reports. If that version of the report is of the reports are more accurate, then you can then disapprove and then reapprove using this revised and certified version. There is a training in the CSIS YouTube channel that would provide you more details on the certification process. Okay, so part of the certification process is resolving errors. So as I've mentioned, you have to resolve all fatal errors. Otherwise, CalPAS won't allow you to certify, right? So let me just demo one error. Let's just go to the data discrepancies because this is where you would be working anyway. So there are different errors just like in Fall 1, right? And so mm, if you need to resolve an error, then of course just click on an error code here. It would provide you an explanation the of that error, okay, and how to resolve it. Okay. So if let's say you have a PSTS 4852, you wonder why, then of course it gives you a version of the error list. Now, if you want to download the spreadsheet version of the CalPads error list, you just have to go to resource and then go to, oh no, not resource, go to help, troubleshooting, and it gives you the entire list of errors for each of these file types and certification submission. Now you can download the error list on this page too. Okay. Then if you are in CalPads, you can always just go to the bottom and then also download the error list here. It would bring you to it would download that error list that's version 16.10. And then of course, before troubleshooting errors, it is important that you are aware of any active defects. You can click on that active defects at the bottom of CalPads, and it will provide you a list of active defects. So if you are encountering an error and you think it doesn't make sense, you can always go here and just type let's say, an error number. And if that error has a defect, it should reflect here. Also, the good thing about just clicking on the error in here is, as I mentioned, if you click this, the active defect is also listed on the actual error page. Okay. All right. So when troubleshooting errors, you have to have the error list, download the CalPADS code sets, download the CalPADS file specifications form, because it will provide you conditions as to when a field element is required or not. Okay. So all of those are in the resource page, reference page here. You could download those. And then, of course, make sure that you download the CalPADS valid combinations document, because this is essential for fault to reporting. Okay. All right. So let's go to one error. So let's do this one, SDM689F2. Okay. States here no assignment for demographics record. There are no defects. And the error description is that staff demographics was reported for a seed that has no staff assignment. Okay. The fields validated is staff assignment data and SDM. And then you have suggested resolutions here. So let's go to the actual seed that triggered the error. This is for dollar bill. So it appears that this staff member is actively employed this year because they have an active demographic record. There's no employment end date. However, you have not submitted a staff assignment for the staff member yet. So as a CalPADS person, you ask yourself, is this staff member employed? That's the first question, right? Because if the staff member is not employed, the easy fix is to just update their most recent demographic record with an employment end date. So if a staff member is no longer employed, just report the employment end date here. Okay. And that should remove the staff member from any other future validations. Now, of course, if a staff member is actively employed and has to be reported, the next question is, okay, is this staff member assigned to a class? Are they teachers? So if they are teachers and they are assigned to a class and they are actively employed, of course, you then submit their staff assignment, similar to this, but academic year 24-25. Okay, you can add a new record or submit a file to CalPADS that would include the staff members' staff assignment records. So just beware that the staff assignment record is a replacement type file. So whenever you submit a SASS record for a specific school, since the replacement type processing has operational keys, be aware that for staff assignments, if you submit a staff assignment record for a specific school, and you have not submitted the entire file for that school, then it will overwrite that record. Okay, so Nate mentioned that in, I think, a slide prior to the staff demographic record staff section. So you may need to go back there, or you can always just go back. You can go to the user manual and type replacement processing table. And you will have here the operational keys that will be taken into consideration if a record would be overwritten or not. Okay. Okay. So question is now, is this staff member active? If yes, then by all means submit their staff assignment and then submit the course that they are assigned to. Now, if a staff member is on leave, then again, report the staff assignment and then report a non-classroom job code of 6018 and also report their FTE. And then if they are the teacher of record, you still have to report the courses assigned to them. Okay, so that's how to resolve that error. Now let's go to another one. Okay, we also have SDM684F2. This is stating that there is a missing non-classroom based assignment or course session record for a staff member. Okay. So let's go back here and click on this record. So what that record is stating is that error stating is that you have an active staff member this year. That staff member was reported with an assignment. However, we don't have any courses assigned to that teacher reported this year. Okay. So since that teacher, you've reported a staff member as a teacher, it is important that you report a course assigned to them. Okay. If you have not submitted your CRSE file yet, then by all means submit the entire CRSE file for that specific school. Okay. Now, sometimes this happens as well for RSP teachers, right? For RSP teachers, you may accidentally report them with, you may have reported them with a 27. However, the course, your SIS did not include their courses assigned to them. So you have to assign the course, assign an RSP course of 9231 to resolve that error. Okay. And then let's say you have a staff member who is not teaching. You have an admin or pupil service at 10 or an 11. You have the assignment here. However, CalPADS is still triggering an error. What could be the case? What could be the reason why we are triggering this error? If you have an assignment for a 10 or an 11, that's correct, Charlene. No classroom job assignment code. So if this was 11 and it was triggering the error, then you make sure that the non-classroom based assignment code is reported. Now, if the staff member is an admin or pupil service staff and they are on leave, then make sure that you report them with the 6018. Employee on leave, report their appropriate FTE. You can just leave it as 100 and then post, and that should resolve the error. Okay. And then we also have one last one. You have the opposite. You have a course assigned, but the staff member does not have a teaching assignment. Okay. So this is the error. So for this, the staff member is employed. The staff member does not have an assignment this year. However, a course was reported for that staff member. Okay. So what is missing here? You're telling us the staff is actively employed. They are assigned to a course, but I don't see any assignment. You're not telling me what the staff member's assignment is in CalPADS. So this happens sometimes if, let's say, a staff member, it could be a timing issue. You submitted the courses ahead of the assignment file. Then by all means, submit your assignment file that would reflect that the staff member is assigned to the school that where the course is reflected at. Okay, bear in mind. So let's say if you also have a CR, you have this error for a staff member who is in multiple sites. You have your itinerant teachers. Let's say they're doing band in 3 schools. However, you've submitted courses for all 3 schools here. However, you only submitted 2 staff assignments reflecting just 2 schools. Then by all means submit the other itinerant 27 for that other school. So that's how to resolve this error. And then of course you have your PSTS. CTE PSTS student must have a previous SCTE record. If let's say you submitted a survey, for some reason you sent out a survey to all completers. You did not filter for just your CTE pathway completers, right? And so This error will trigger if you submitted a PSTS record for a student who is um okay, who either did not complete a CT pathway, or apparently this student is still enrolled, at the district this year. So they are a fifth year senior. So in this case, it is bad data, right? No wonder the staff member, the student did not respond, is because they're still actively enrolled at the district, right? So this is bad data. So it is important that you know who to survey. That way you don't get this type of scenarios. And then sometimes you also have um, this one, student course section for SSID not enrolled on census day. For this, it's stating that you are reporting an SCSE record for a student who is not enrolled on census day. So let's check. Well enough, you have the 24-25 SCSE. However, it turns out the student was a no-show. So for some reason, you've submitted their SCSC this year, and then it turns out you learned that the student never showed up after census day, and so you already generated the SCSC, and now you have this. So to resolve this, you can always just delete the SCSC record, or if the student is enrolled, by all means report the enrollment at the site where that school course of delivery was reported in. Okay, so there are different scenarios, errors that you will encounter in CalPAS, obviously, for this. But bottom line is, you don't have to learn all of this. You just have to know where to find the resource to be able to figure it out. So if you click on this, it brings you to the user manual. It then refers you to the fields that you have to look at. It may even refer you to different documentation that you have to refer to. Okay. And if for some reason you still can't figure it out, you could always check the active defects, or you can click on create a ticket and then send us a ticket asking for help. Okay. That's how to resolve the errors. Once you've cleared the errors and you're now on your way to certifying or to reviewing your reports, then of course you have to go to the certification page and review the reports that I've shown you earlier. And of course, you have to look at the report logic for each report to understand what each report reflects. And so Nate will discuss that right now.